From every strand on the line of your reel, to the rods, to the anglers, to the lures on the end of your hook, let's talk about those big bass here on Co-Angler's Corner with your hosts, Rob Welch and John Stoudinger.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Hey, Cajun Rob here hanging out with you. And we're pleased to introduce our guest, Mr. John Bledsoe of Co-Angler. How's it going, John?
Great to be here, guys. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Definitely. And John couldn't make it. He's a little under weather, so we got our good friend, Mr. Alvin.
Welcome. I'm back.
And, always great to have the legend here on us, Mr. TAAO Live. And but for folks that don't know John, kind of give him a short on Co-Angler. I know you just released the app, and kind of give him a short little introduction to your app and your website.
Yeah, absolutely. So I developed an app called Co-Angler, and it's almost exactly what it sounds like. It is an app designed to connect people to go fish together. So if you got a boat and an extra seat and you want somebody to come with you, help split some gas money, help load and unload the boat. We've had people use it to help shuttle kayaks for float fishing trips, and we have people even posting trips just fishing from the bank. It's a pretty cool thing. We've got over 1,300 users in 45 states now, and we're growing. We've had almost 400 fishing trips planned through the app, and we've connected almost 100 people to go fish together so far, and it's growing. But yeah, we just launched the native mobile app in the app stores. So April 4th it went live, and we've been signing up a bunch of new users, and we've had our website application that's been live for the last 14, 15 months. It went live in November of 23, and that was one of the pieces of feedback that people asked us is, when's the app coming? And so we went back to work and got that finished, and so excited to kind of put a new tool in a fisherman's tackle box.
Definitely. I got on it, and I like your map feature where you can pull up your local area, and you'll have little pins, hey, this guy's fishing the 31st at, Lake Cumberland or something. But I think that's cool. That's a cool addition for sure.
Yeah, we're definitely working on building new features right now. And, a lot of those features that are in there right now come from just talking to people just like yourselves on, what works and what doesn't and what do you want to see. And so it was my idea to build it in the beginning, but from now forward, it's, I'm trying to build what other people really want. It's not about necessarily my needs. So definitely, looking to try and, continue to grow this platform and help more people get out on the water and do some fishing together.
Absolutely. I think you're off to a great start. Like I said, it's great you're listening to your subscribers and your guys, giving you feedback, and you're taking it to heart. So that's great.
Yeah. It's a journey, though. It's been a journey. I tell you what, it's not been easy, but it's so rewarding though, when, especially that first trip where people connected and went fishing together, and because in the beginning I was one of the first people to use the app, and I was on there going fishing with people, and I just got an enormous amount of enjoyment out of it. And I was hosting trips and taking people out on my boat, and then I was joining other people's trips and going fishing with them, and I've made so many great friends and met so many great people, and but we still got a long ways to go. So
absolutely, man, but great start. Alvin, you got any questions or comments you want to share with John?
So it's available on both Google and Apple?
Yep. So it's in the App Store and the Google Play Store. It works on, 120 some odd different devices formatted to your phone. And so, when we launched the web app, that was one thing that, you had to get on your browser and go to coangler.com and log in, and then you're on a browser, so it doesn't work as smooth. And so now we've got, push notifications and, kind of real-time updates. If somebody wants to join one of your trips, you get a push notification to your phone. One feature that I'm really excited about that actually came from talking to users, which is a new trip in your area feature. So if there's a new trip posted on the Co-Angler app within 100 miles of your location, you're going to get a push notification and an email saying, hey, there's a new trip in your area. And what we've seen is people just flock to the app. They want to know who's going fishing, where they're going, what they're fishing for. And so it's been pretty cool to see, how well that feature has been received from all the anglers on the platform. So
that's nice, man. Can't beat that. And it works good on the iPhone. Looks good on the iPhones. There it is. But yep. get the App Store. I got mine in the App Store, so it's
Yep.
ready. It's right there, ready, accessible.
Yeah, yeah. It was funny when we launched the native mobile app. We already had 1,100 people. Well, a little over 1,000 people signed up on the app and on the website. And so when the app went live and everybody started going over and downloading the app, they all tried to start creating their own account, their brand new account, and they're all getting these 404 error messages. And I had to tell them, you've already created your Co-Angler account. All you got to do is log in. So just log in and you're good to go. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And got a quick comment just come in. Our good friend Daniel. Hey, Daniel, what's up? Said, what's up, guys? Let's go with the Co-Angler. Hey, thanks, Daniel. Appreciate you, man.
Is there really a more appropriate podcast for me to be featured on?
Nope.
Co-Angler's Corner.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh man, but yeah, it's. I said, man, I think you got a bright future. I think you got a lot of good ideas. I think it's gonna be around for a long time. But and man, you're helping guys that don't have a boat, and then helping guys that sharing boats and rides and I think that's great, man. I think you're really expanding the sport, introducing new people all the time to the sport.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you go on there, say I went on and I said, okay, I want to fish. BFL has a tournament next weekend. I want to fish as a co-angler. Can anglers go on there and say, hey, I'm fishing the North Carolina BFL on Jordan Lake, I could use a co-angler?
Yeah.
People do that.
Yeah, we don't see a whole lot of the tournament anglers connecting. I've seen, we've had instances in the past where the tournament anglers are opening up their boat on practice days. Like, hey, I'm fishing with PFL and I'm practicing for 2 days beforehand if anybody wants to join me. I have had anglers on there that, are looking for co-anglers for tournaments and vice versa. One of the hard parts is, there's a Facebook fishing group. There's about 80,000 people on that group. So, I'm right at 1,200 users. So their odds of success, just posting a simple thing on a Facebook group, it tends to be a little bit quicker and easier. But, what I'm really trying to do is create a platform for really just your more recreational anglers. I mean, from experts to novices, but people that are, just wanting to go out there and have some fun fishing, and they don't want to fish alone, or they want to help introduce somebody to the sport and get them out there and show them a new technique and exchange ideas. And so I think that's really the core value proposition. And I came up with this idea. I was fishing by myself on my boat, and it was the origination story. I was, I'm based out of the Southwest Missouri Ozarks here, and some beautiful lakes in this area to fish. And my home lake that I like to fish is called Palm de Terre Lake, and it was October of 2021, and I was fishing out there by myself, and happened to look at my empty seat on my boat, and I got to thinking, why didn't I bring somebody with me? And it was about, just a few minutes later, the wheels kind of started to turn. I was like, wait a second, why isn't there something out there to do just that and connect people to go fish together? And I envisioned kind of an app or, something you could use on your phone. And that's when I came up with the name Co-Angler. And then I went home that night and I bought coangler.com for $13. And my buddy told me, he's like, you got to build this. And he's like, and so I ended up working with my local entrepreneurial center, and I did a feasibility study with the university's College of Business, and then ended up enrolling in a software development training boot camp that was almost a year long, and got a scholarship to participate in that. And I took the long, hard path to get this app built, because this was, over 3.5 years ago. But that's where I started learning to code, and I built, the prototype and designed the whole user interface, and then was lucky enough to actually get a $75,000 grant from that company that hosted that program, and they gave me a professional developer and designer and project manager, and we kicked off, a professional product development cycle in June of 23, and launched the app in November of 23, and started signing up users. And so I spent most of 2024, really just getting the word out on the web. This web app is here, and the people can use it and start getting feedback. And so, it's been a pretty cool journey, and it's been a long one too. So.
Oh yeah. But
I
hey,
sit here listening to you.
yeah.
I sit here listening to you talking about building the. I took the easy way out.
Yeah.
I hired someone to do it.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm doing now. I've got developers that I've hired, and so I definitely, I reached my technical limits pretty quick, and then eventually I was like, okay, let's step out of the way and let the professionals do their work, because you get to where
I
you're
let them.
But go ahead.
The network itself, I do the programming and all that, but when it comes time to add like a new app or change anything or keep up, you too, now that you're on, especially with Apple and Google, every other day you gotta go in and agree to this and agree to that. The taxes over in this country are changing. You gotta conform to a million things. So yeah, I still do most of it, but the designing, someone else does that.
Yeah. I haven't had the tax issue just yet because we're still free. Everything's 100% free to use. So.
Oh, we're free too. So I'm free to download and watch, but they still send you those emails.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody's got their hands out. Everybody got their hands out.
Right.
Europe changes their taxes every other week.
Oh yeah, that's like I'm in the fishing business, and everything about tariffs, and now they've settled it. And now the manufacturers and the dealers, are they going to keep their prices high? Are they going to drop them down? Now it's who knows.
I don't think they'll be dropping.
Nah, be like build supplies. You know how build supplies are. Hurricane goes through Florida, plywood and all that goes up, never goes down. It just keeps going. So, who knows?
We have that right here where I live. Right down the street from me. You come out my driveway, make a right, a left, go a quarter of a mile. There's a gas station. Gas was $2.73.
Yep.
Now it's $3.15 in less than 48 hours.
Yep.
Come Monday, it'll go back down to $2.75, $2.80, and then come midweek, it'll go back up. It goes up and down. I was like, Potomac River's a mile from us. The river goes up and down. Your gas prices don't have to flow with the river.
Yeah. That's one of the things that, with the Co-Angler app, I feel like there's really 3 or 4 main value propositions for what it is that, the app offers. And one of them is that affordability factor. Fishing equipment isn't getting any cheaper. Gas, just like you talked about, it's fluctuating up and down. And, boats, we all know how expensive. I don't know how much more expensive they can get. $100,000 these days. Yeah. And so I really fear that, because of the increase in costs, it's just going to limit the amount of accessibility for people that want to enter the sport. And yeah, you can go buy a $20 pole at Walmart and fish from the bank at a farm pond, but it's just not the same. If you really want to, get out there and explore some new waters and catch some fish in some beautiful areas, you want to have access to those assets like boats. And I think, there's a significant number of people that I've found, that are more than welcome to, open their boat up and share a seat with somebody and take them out for a good time on the water. I've seen it happen time and time again already on the app. But increasing that accessibility as well as making it more affordable for everybody, the boater, the non-boater, and then, but most importantly, trying to foster a sense of community too, and having, a place where people know that they can go to connect with real people and in the real world to go out and do some fishing. Because, as social media and technology continues to advance, we tend to get more and more locked into these phones. And, while we think we're more socially connected than ever, we're actually a lot more isolated. And so, why not try and leverage and use this social media and this technology to actually connect us back to each other in the real world and do something as, primitive and historic as, fishing, which is something that's just, flows through humanity's, blood since the dawn of time. It's something that's so primitive that, I think marrying that with technology is a great way to kind of flip the switch a little bit and remind people that, a lot of cool people out there if you just get out there and get to know them and go do some fishing. And there's when I got started, I was doing a lot of customer discovery and going and talking to a lot of people because, I got a little bit of pushback in the beginning, oh, that'll never work. You can't connect strangers to go fish together. You know how many crazies you're going to get coming out of the woodwork. And, that just sounds like a nightmare, connecting two people that have rough personalities and then they're out on the water. It just sounds like a bad deal. But, I'll never forget, I talked to a really good fishing guide down on the White River. He guided for almost 40 years down there. His name is Donald Craner. You can actually find a couple Bill Dance episodes where they're out and fishing with Donald Craner as their guide at Craner's Guide Service. And there's a couple of really good episodes with Bill Dance and Johnny Morris from Bass Pro out there fishing. But I was talking to Donald on the phone one day, and I was telling him about my Co-Angler app. And, I got to ask him, I was like, Donald, you've been fishing for 40 some odd years. You've had hundreds and thousands of people that you've taken out on the water. I was like, how many times have you had a bad experience or like where it's just kind of went sour, where you got some nasty personalities in the boat? And he said, man, in all my entire career, I can probably count on one hand that out of those 30, 40 years that, I got a couple of bad actors. And he was a really good friend of Forrest and Mina Wood, down there in Flippin, Arkansas, and good family friend of them. But he told me a quote that Forrest Wood used to say, and it really struck home with me. And it was, Forrest used to say, there's no better place in the world that two people can find common ground than on the front deck of a fishing boat.
Agreed.
And there's just something about being out in nature and having a good time that, like, it kind of puts your differences, at ease. And, especially as divisive as everything is these days, I think, just getting out there and, doing some fishing with your fellow man or woman for that matter, it's a great way to, kind of find some commonality in this world. And, but then again, Forrest might have been trying to sell them Ranger boats too. So I don't know. But
A little bit of both, I'd say, knowing Forrest.
Oh, yeah. But you see, your app is also good because, like what you're saying, in this industry, we put two people that maybe met the night before for 5 minutes together on a weekly basis. Right. Millions of people. So, but what I like about the app, the basic is, I'm a boater. I'm going down to Jordan for the first time. Why not put on the app, hey, I'm going to be fishing Jordan Wednesday, Thursday. Anybody wants to come join me from the area, please feel free to join me. Yeah. You're getting a local person to come help you.
Right.
And it's helping you learn the lake. It's also helping you learn what you need, where to go, what to look out for. Every lake has its, when you go around this turn, go wide, because if you don't go wide, you're going to bump into a rock that's just under the water. Yep. So it does have a lot of purpose. Even if it's just a guide, not a guide, but just someone to say, hey, a backseat driver, look left, don't go left, don't go right, don't do this, don't do that. So it does make a lot of sense.
Yeah. And that's really the intention of it, Now, don't get me wrong. I've been on guided fishing trips, and I know that, those professional guides out there, they are some of the best fishermen in the world. I'd say there's a lot of them guides out there that could put these professional tournament anglers to shame. But, I will say that, the prices of those guided trips, especially those very good guides, they are up there. Sometimes you'll spend $800 for an 8-hour trip. And that's, for freshwater. No telling what you get when you go out on saltwater. But, that's where I'm trying to create kind of a more affordable option for people. And just like you said, you're traveling to a certain, water body, that could be hundreds of miles away, and you don't have a lot of local knowledge or know what you're quite getting into. And that's where you can, post a trip, either a general trip request or offer a trip in that area. And when you drop that pin on that location, everybody within 100 miles of where you're fishing, if they're on the app, they're going to know that you're coming and potentially provide that trip for you or join you in your boat and kind of help, maybe just go fish with you too and provide some, companionship. But that's really, helping out the travel industry too, because there's a lot of people talk to me and says, hey, I'm going down to Florida and, I don't necessarily want to get a guide. I'd rather just, find a local fishing buddy to go, out there for an afternoon with and just have some fun and tinker around, So I think, the applications, I've been surprised. I had, when I first came up with the idea, it was, I was thinking, oh, there's a boat involved every time. There's a boater with an extra seat, and he's taking somebody, maybe two people at once. And it didn't take very long before I realized, like, people are going to use this however they really want to. And the very first co-angler trip that got confirmed that I wasn't involved in was a float trip. Gentleman had 2 kayaks. He scheduled a trip, posted it. A gentleman drove down 2.5 hours from Kansas City to come meet this guy. And he helped them shuttle their boats, and they went fishing for a 7-mile float and caught smallmouth and largemouth. And it was just a really cool application. The boat doesn't necessarily have to be a motor boat. And, at the end of the day, it doesn't even really have to have a boat involved. We've had fly fishing trips posted, that's just wading and fishing from the bank. But I'm excited to continue to see, how this app could be used in ways that I necessarily didn't plan for or think of.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I know back in the day, like I showed up for a Bass Open one time, and I didn't know nobody, and so I said, well, I'm gonna go hang out at the local restaurant right at the boat ramp, and it was a guy from my hometown. I recognized him. I said, hey, I know that guy, and so we kind of exchanged, hey, how's it going? You're from you so and so, and he's like, hey, my wife don't want me to fish alone today in practice. You doing anything? I was like, no, man, let's go. And it was cool. And his wife backed the truck in and said, I'll see you this afternoon, honey. And then we was off. It's pretty cool. But stuff like that. There's a lot of guys out there that's older, and and their wives don't like them to go fishing alone. Especially if it's a big lake. So I think that's perfect.
Yeah, and you just mentioned kind of that impromptu fishing trip. In my memories, those are always the best ones. Like when you're finding a fishing partner last minute, or you're making that last minute trip to let's just go drop everything and go fishing. Those are always some of the best trips.
Oh yeah, or you're supposed to work Saturday and it cancels. You're like, well, what am I gonna do? Oh, I go fishing. Hey, I pull the app. And there you go.
Yeah.
And the nice part, like you were saying, if you're, I'm 65. I don't have a boat anymore. But if I did, I wouldn't mind having somebody out there with me for the day. You don't know. Yep. Especially if you're on even familiar waters. Like I'm on the Potomac River.
Mm-hmm.
Potomac River is less than a mile behind my house.
Yep.
And, no matter how familiar you are with the water, things change.
Yeah.
But it would be nice to have somebody out there with you during the day.
Yeah.
I've had plenty of days where I just sit there all day. It's like, I'm going in.
And that's something that it's funny we're bringing this up because I've got a new partnership that is going to really help with exactly just that. And it was just so happenstance that I stumbled across this. I was just networking through the fishing world and ended up speaking to a marketing director. His name is Kelly Goman from the Bass Federation, and I ran into him, talked to him on the phone, and then ran into him 9 months later at the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame induction ceremony here in Springfield. I was talking to him again, and he actually told me about an opportunity that he connected me with this insurance company. So, and I've actually secured this partnership now. So it's a company called Grouper, and they provide an insurance benefit, a wellness reimbursement through United Healthcare. And so they're actually reimbursing people like, they would for gym memberships and things like that, with your insurance. Well, they're trying to promote social well-being and activities. So they're partnering with these various clubs, and they've got a golf club, they've got backgammon, they've got chess, they got walking, hiking, but they lacked a fishing partner. And one of the business development managers who loves to fish, he's out in North Carolina, he was the gentleman that I ended up getting connected with. And he said they had actually been considering building what it is that I'd built, a platform for people to connect to go fish together. And long story short, within about 3 meetings, we got this partnership solidified. And in about a month, we're going to be able to announce the official communications and the reimbursement amount. But long story short, people with Medicare Part C Advantage plans that are 65 and up in America, which is over 17 million Americans, are going to qualify.
1,000,001.
Yeah, are going to qualify for this wellness reimbursement through Grouper and United Healthcare. So last year the reimbursement was $110 a year. So you'll be able to use that for your fishing trip costs, for your co-angler subscriptions once we start building in our subscription model. And so especially with that older demographic, 65 and up, that, a lot of times, people bring up like, well, it seems dangerous to go out there and fish with a stranger, but this is actually an added piece of protection for you when you're out there on the water. You have your wives and girlfriends, sitting at home wondering, if that water temperature's in the 40s and it's a windy day and you're out there on the lake by yourself, just having that additional element of safety by a fishing partner in your boat, somebody that can help call 911 or pull you back in the water, or help you with that hook that you might need pulled out of your hand. So it's something that I think can really give anglers a lot more confidence going out on the water, just having somebody do it. And if you're able to use your insurance and getting paid to go fishing, I mean, can you really beat that? So
that's a win-win right there, man.
Would you have to have United Healthcare?
No, it's just that's just who's administering it. So Grouper's administering it as a part through United Healthcare, but if you have a Medicare Part C Advantage plan, you're going to qualify for this reimbursement.
Nice.
Yes, nice. All my life I kept saying, when I hit 65, I get Social Security, Medicare, and 2 weeks ago I hit 65, and I was like, damn, man. I was paying less for insurance when I had a private insurance. It wasn't costing me as much.
Yep.
So I don't know where the savings is.
There probably ain't any.
Yeah, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, every bit helps. Every bit helps.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's another partnership that I'm really proud of, and looking forward to more partnerships like this. And so, like I said, I'm based here in Missouri, and I recently kicked off a partnership with the Missouri Conservation Heritage Foundation, which is the sister nonprofit that's 100% aligned in mission with our conservation department. And we've got a new institute that's actually getting unrolled right now. It's the Johnny Morris Institute for Fisheries, Wetlands, and Aquatic Systems. It's a University of Missouri extension, and it's providing scholarships and graduate assistantships for people that are going into conservation and wildlife management, environmental sciences, fisheries and wildlife biologists. And it's going to be a state-of-the-art institute that's going to help inform and help create opportunities for our next generation of scientists to help make the most informed decisions on how to best protect our natural resources. And I'm super excited to be partnering with them, and because like I said earlier, co-angler is 100% free to use, but in the future, I'm going to have to figure out how to make some money off this, or it's not going to stick around forever. But I from the very beginning, I'm pledging 10% of all of our net profits back to meaningful conservation organizations that are doing good work to try and help preserve these resources for our next generations. And this Johnny Morris Institute really is kind of the first partnership that I've secured for that, where I'm going to be pledging. And but I'm also looking for more of those types of organizations. It's not just going to be one. So I've got some really cool opportunities coming up this summer, where there's some additional conservation pieces that are going to continue to develop, but something that I'm really passionate about. I was a chemist for 13 years and studied environmental chemistry, and I'm a member of our Missouri Stream team out here, and so I do water quality monitoring, and so it's something I'm really passionate about, making sure that we're trying to take the best information we possibly can to make the best decisions, and trying to protect these waterways, because if you don't have clean water, it's going to affect everything down the line. So
absolutely. But man, that's great. That's great partnerships, man. You can't beat it. And that's just a kind of tip of the iceberg. I see a lot more, hopping on in the near future.
Well, and there's other, if you guys have other things that you want to suggest, even if you come across something, let me know, whether it's veterans organizations or getting kids fishing, I really want to try and partner with the people doing the most meaningful work to try and help get people in the outdoors and increase that accessibility. Because there was one statistic I learned through my market research in the very beginning, and it was, if you take a kid fishing before the age of 12 years old, there's an 86% chance that they're going to fish regularly as an adult.
Wow.
It is staggering. And so the opposite of that is, if you don't take a kid fishing, they're not going to know what it's about. They're not going to have any real understanding of what the big fuss is about. And so it's so important that we get our kids fishing and take them out there and expose them to the outdoors and let them know what it's all about. Because if we don't, they're not going to know, and they'll, they're not going to be worried about protecting it and encouraging other people to do it as well. So that's something I'm really passionate about too, is just getting those kids out there fishing as well.
Absolutely. And man, you see them out there fishing, smiling, having a good time. Man, it's great.
Well, I had a catfishing trip. It was last fall, and I had taken a gentleman out on a co-angler trip, and we were catfishing. And we started out. I decided, sometimes you get out there, you throw a cast net, and you catch your bait, you catch all your shad, but other times you want to catch some bluegill or some sunfish, and so I decided we were just going to, take some night crawlers and some panfish hooks and bobbers and go out there. And I tell you what, I probably had more fun catching all them panfish, just trying to get bait, getting ready for the catfish than I did, like actually catching the catfish on our limb lines. But yeah, that's a great way to get kids out there and keep them entertained, because, going out and catching bluegill and sunfish is great way to introduce somebody to the sport.
Absolutely. And get them outside, get them outdoors for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally agree. Tackle boxes, not Xboxes.
Yeah.
Now they're making fishing games on your, you got fishing games on your phone. It's like, just go fishing. Like, a lot more fun than playing the game on your phone.
I can't play games. I'm sorry. Every once in a while, I get bored. I'll throw solitaire up there for a game or two, and that's about it. I never got into the games. It's nothing beats doing it itself.
Yeah. No, I 100%.
Yeah. If you get it during the lake and the fog just coming off the water right at sunrise, man, there's nothing beats that. I think that's my favorite.
Yeah. And that's what it puts you in that environment, and that's why I think, our outdoorsmen and women are our best conservationists and stewards of the outdoors, because they immerse themselves in it. We go out there and we see that sunrise on a blast over lake, and the sunsets, and I'm a night fisherman too. I love getting out there at night when everybody else is going home. And we just had a full moon here yesterday, and I missed it. We had some cloud cover, but one of my annual trips I do every year is the August full moon. I get out there and I fish all night, put on at like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, and fish till the sun comes up. I've got some of my biggest fish come 3 or 4 in the morning, and it's just fishing by the light of the moon too, and in the dark. You'd be surprised how good of a caster it makes you when you can't really see what you're turning at. And, it's all feel at that point in time. You can't be a line watcher when it's, pitch black dark out there. But
yeah, and then I like bass fish at night that time, because you can topwater fish, and you just hear kabloosh, and you just kind of wait. You feel weight, but you can hear but yeah, that's a lot of fun going at night. And I know a lot of guys do the archery, the bow fishing at night, so it's getting more popular, seems like.
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing more people, start getting out there. But yeah, it's, we're just all lucky, all three of us. I'm sure, we've been fishing since we were kids, and I was lucky enough to grow up in a fishing family, and both my parents are just ate up with it. And, had my parents not taken me, my dad was a pretty serious fisherman when he was raising me as a toddler, and he used to fish tournaments and whatnot. But I can still hear my mom telling stories about when he'd take me down to the local farm pond, and I'd maybe be like 3 or 4 years old, and he had his big fancy, vest on with all the pockets and, and all the tackle. And I was just this handsy little toddler that just wanted to, fiddle with his pockets. And my dad used to get so dang frustrated. He about threw me in the pond a couple times. But no, I've been really fortunate to grow up in a family that's kind of instilled the outdoors in me from a young age. And, kind of showing me what it's all about. And they fish more than I do. It's like, I never knew starting the fishing business would take me away from fishing as much as I thought it would. But I still get to go out and fish quite a bit, a couple days a week. But it's hard to keep up with my mom and dad. They're pretty enthusiastic crappie fishermen, walleye and catfish too. So, but we get a lot of family fishing trips there.
I grew up on a lake in New York, upstate New York.
Mm-hmm.
I was maybe a couple hundred yards from the best shore fishing on the lake was right there. I just walk a couple of hundred yards, go about 50 yards to the left, a rock wall that went out. You could walk up, you could fish from the shore along the rock wall. You could walk out on it and fish out deeper.
Yep.
Then you had pads off to the right. Then you had just an open beach area kind of with just rocky bottom. Yeah, it's great fishing, and like you were saying, learning how to fish and enjoying it at an early age before you learn the competition part of it.
Yep.
Right.
A lot of these high school kids, they're introduced to fishing and competition almost together. Like they've gone out one or two times and boom, they're thrown into tournaments.
Yep.
They need to be out there for a couple of years fishing before they find out about the tournaments so that they know what it's about. Like you were saying, they know to be conservative. They know what it's like.
Yeah.
Because once you throw that tournament in, it's not fun no more.
This is probably going to come as a shock to you guys, and it comes to a shock to a lot of people, but I've never fished a bass tournament in my life. And especially with starting a company called Co-Angler, which, especially in the bass fishing world is a well-known, you're the non-boater, in the back of the boat. And it's not that I don't like bass tournaments. I follow the Elite Series and Major League Fishing and NPFLs, and I have my favorite professional anglers that I watch and follow. And but for whatever reason, I think I've just kind of purposely, stayed away from that because exactly almost what you said, for fear of turning it into a competitive thing that might take the fun out. So fishing has always been more of a, it's when I'm fishing alone, it's therapy. And when I'm fishing with somebody, it's about that kinship and, going out and having fun with my buddies. And it's, I'm not saying I'll never fish a tournament because I eventually think, I will get involved in some capacity. But yeah, I think fishing is just one of those things that, it's a delicate line between, like, if you start, excuse my French, but you don't want to just, well, I say excuse my French. I'm not going to say what I was going to say.
You're good, man.
Yeah, but I just, I think I see the good, the bad, and the ugly from where I sit, and and especially in the bass fishing world right now, I really wish that, especially the tournament fishing, I really wish there was a lot more support for each other. There's so many people that are just fueling. I feel like the sport's almost being fueled by negativity, whether you're arguing about forward-facing sonar and live scope, or you're mad at somebody because their dad bought them a boat and they got money and you don't. Like there's all these different examples, and you see the professionals crying out about this. Like, please just be positive. Like Dustin Connell, when he won Red Crest, man, I couldn't agree with him more. He said, if you're going to be negative, you just stay away. You stay off my social media. I have no time for you. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want any part of it. And I just like to see more people, because that creates a barrier where people that may not be accustomed to the sport, they don't want to get involved when they see like how hostile it can be.
Oh yeah.
So I just,
it can be hostile.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And but I mean, the bad news travels like wildfire, and good news travels slow. And so there is a lot more people out there I know that are doing it the right way for the right reasons. that's what I think as a community and fishing community at large, people need to do is focus on lifting those people up and those voices, because those are the people that are going to be the true ambassadors to the sport that really represent what it's all about.
Oh, absolutely.
And like you were saying about the negativity,
Mm-hmm.
co-angler traditionally, Rob knows this, the guy on the back of the boat.
Yep.
The redheaded stepchild.
Right.
I don't care. I'm going to take off when I'm going to say we're going, give you 10 seconds, we're going. If you fall off, I'll call the tournament director, tell you where you are.
Yep.
That's basically some of their attitudes.
Yeah.
And it does you go to a bass tournament where it's a draw, where I don't know till Friday night who I'm being with tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And you go to the tournament at the end,
mm-hmm.
you go find the co-anglers. You can tell who the co-anglers are.
Yeah.
They're muttering as they're walking away.
Right.
And I think that's what the draw is to the team trails, why they're growing. Because I'm going with someone, I'm fishing all 5 of my tournaments with the same guy.
Yeah.
So that's why that. But like you said, that co-angler portion where your app, now I can just sit there and say, okay, there's no tournament involved. I want to go fish. I got nothing to do Saturday. Let me see what's going on the Potomac. Who's got something scheduled going out of Leesylvania or Aquia Harbor, which is right down the street. And I like that idea.
Yeah.
There's no tournament involved. I can get on the back of the boat. I can learn from the guy at the front. The guy at the front can learn from me. I know a lot of guys that are in the industry like me. We do spinner baits. We do all kinds of baits. So I know sometimes I like to go and throw the guy. I'll throw the boater 4 or 5 spinner baits.
Yeah.
Just so I can get their feedback. And I know a lot of guys that do plastics that do the same thing.
Yeah.
Here, take this bag, try it out.
Yeah.
So this app is also good for that.
Yeah, and that's one barrier that I'm trying to overcome, which is that, kind of that, I guess, I don't know if it's an assumption or that predisposition of what that co-angler role is. Because you brought up, I want, fishing off the back of the boat. There's so many opportunities. Like, to be a co-angler using this app doesn't necessarily put you in that traditional co-angler position like you'd experience in a bass tournament.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of times I'm fishing off the front deck with people, especially if we're doing other types of trips like walleye or crappie or even trolling. It's a team effort. You're just the co-angler, figuratively speaking. It's not a well-defined position, but yeah, it's a little bit of a hurdle that I've got to get over, because, a lot of, I posted some content earlier today, and on my TikTok, I got a kind of a snarky comment from a gentleman because it was a picture of me getting in the back of this bass boat for this co-angler trip where I was the co-angler, and I climbed up over the fender and I stepped in the sea, and some people that's a big no-no. You don't step on the seat in a bass boat. And I'm just like, he was like, I don't even step in my own seats. I'm like, you probably spend more time wiping your boat down in the garage than you do fishing anyway. So.
You see these guys at the end of a tournament, they put that boat on the trailer before they take the fish to the scales. They're wiping their boats down.
Yeah.
But again, for someone new to the sport, someone who's been fishing, pleasure fishing, running around lakes, this app. Hey, I want to break into fishing. I want to give that being on a boat a chance. I've heard a lot of co-anglers complain about it. I've been around. I've heard a lot of complaints on the internet. God bless Facebook and that. All the truthful stories that come out. Let me try this app and go as a go on a boat with somebody and say, hey, I've never been on a boat.
Yep.
And let me just spend a day on the back of a boat and see what it's like.
Yeah.
Get an idea of what it's like. And try it. But like you said, in a tournament, there's a fine line that goes between those seats during the tournament.
Oh, yeah.
A co-angler does not cross that line. And that line extends right through the water. Even if you're fishing off the side of the boat, you don't go over that line.
Right.
But at least with this app, I can get out there and at least get on the boat and see what it's like to be on the back of a boat when it's in the water.
Right. No, I totally agree. And I think it's a great way to, introduce people to just like what you just said, what it's all about. And, I've got a long-term vision, for this, and, there's still a long ways to go, to build this platform into really what I dream it can be. And, there's still some limitations with, you need the internet to use my app, and internet's not accessible everywhere, especially in a lot of these, remote environments we get on, out there in the water in these backwaters. But eventually those problems are going to resolve themselves, and we're going to have whether it's Starlink or whatever else, we're going to have widespread internet access across the globe. And, but I have a dream long term. Like, I want to be able to, picture this: you're sitting at home and you pull up the Co-Angler app and you pull up the map feature, and you talked about earlier, Rob, like seeing those pins where these trips are. Well, imagine looking at a water body and seeing boats actually out on the water moving around. And so my long-term vision is to be able to, in real time, I'm sitting at home. I think let's see who's out fishing today. And you can click on that boat and schedule them to pick you up at this dock in an hour. And you drive straight to the dock and they come pick you up and you fish for 2 hours or 1 hour, however long you want to go fish for. And it's instantaneous access. We live in that, like, fast, quick reward type, world that we live in. We want it fast and now. And so trying to create, instantaneous access to the outdoors, and, where people can be out there fishing. Maybe it slows down for an hour or two. And it's like, well, let's go ahead and go live on Co-Angler, see if anybody wants to join me, and, make $20 for an hour or something like that, and, call it good. But that's going to take, like I brought up earlier, a little bit more widespread internet access for something like that to work. But
well, that's a great goal, man. That's a great goal and a great framework. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah. And in the meantime, we're building in some new features right now. One of them that, you learn so much, and you never build the perfect product the first time. And that's because you don't have any real customers yet. And all you're doing is just your best guess. Yeah. But when I started, they call it an MVP, or a minimum viable product. And it's, the first iteration of what you think's, going to be able to validate or test your idea. And so, we built the sign-up process, and you've got a profile. Then, so what's the main feature we need to test? It's to offer a trip. So somebody needs to be able to offer a trip. And what I learned was I kind of over-engineered that offer a trip process. Like, rather than picking a day and a time and a duration and a location and a target species and a technique and a description and a boat description and upload photos, before you know it, people are like in a 5 or 10 minute process just to be able to post a trip.
Right.
And so I learned that, like, people want instantaneous. They want, there was way too much friction, and they don't want all that constriction. They'd rather just be able to do it, hit a couple buttons and say, I want to go fishing. If you want to go, we can work out the details, afterwards and figure that out. So we're working on a feature right now. It's called the Open to Fish feature, which is going to be a 1-button toggle that you can click on your profile. That'll put you in a feed where then people can send you individual fishing requests, and then you can actually work out the details on your fishing trip from that point forward. You don't have to plan it all out on the the formalized offer or request a trip form. So just things that we've learned along the way, where we're trying to make it more user friendly and easier for people to connect and get out on the water. So, and I'm a little leery of going down this pathway, but I've known that it's coming from the beginning. But also building in more social features, allow people to send friend requests to each other, allow people to be able to create general posts and content and trip reports and say, hey, here's the Co-Angler trip I went on, here's how we did. And then anglers can also rate and review each other. I've got this new feature coming out it should be done by the end of the week. But, it's, you go fishing with another angler, you need to leave a review so other people know that, this is a good upstanding person to go fishing with, and kind of helps create that self-regulatory process. But, instead of a 5-star review, it's going to be a 5-fish review, and it's going to be called your efficiency rating. So,
Oh, I got you.
but
That's
cool.
just trying to make it fun,
Also,
Absolutely.
maybe like with Facebook, where you can follow. So I
Right.
can say, okay, I went with Rob. I'm going to follow Rob. So every time Rob posts something, I'm going to get a text saying, hey, Rob just posted he's going to be at Chickamauga on Sunday. Rob
Yep.
just posted kissing me next weekend.
Yep.
So I can say, oh, well, hey, I'm going to be in the same town as him, man. Maybe I'll see if he wants to go fishing.
Yeah.
So that way people can follow each other so they can say, hey, I really like fishing with John. So or I liked having John on my boat.
Yep.
So I'll follow John and say, hey, John, here's where I'm going to be.
Right. Yeah. I actually just wrote down that feature. I've thought of that before, but the fact that you're bringing it up just kind of puts it up a little bit higher in the list.
Yeah.
There you go.
Because that, that is those social media features like that. And, it also does something they call gamification, which in the social media world, like it's a competition about, who has the most followers and, who has all the likes. And I hate to kind of indulge people with that too, but it's something that will create kind of a competitive nature on the platform too, that will encourage people to try and grow their own platform within the social media network.
Yeah.
Too, so.
And then when
Absolutely.
they do that, it builds up the network because it gets more people. They see it. Hey, we had a great time this weekend. I went out fishing with John with Co-Angler app. So it gets you, let me check that app out.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And like, you ever thought about doing lake reports? Like, hey, the lake is full pool and it's 80 degrees and the water temp's 70. You ever thought about doing that? I said, well.
Yeah. I think, I've had several people bring that up, and I think that's definitely, something that is going to have to be built into the app. Because a lot of times people are, whether they're going to go fishing or not, they want to know what's happening, just like you said, and they want a quick, if there's a way we could pull in all that information, especially regionally for people to know, like, this lake's releasing water, show those, those release schedules and how much water's coming out. And, there's some apps out there that are doing similar things, talking about, whether it's wind direction or water clarity, but there's not a whole lot of them that are pulling in that, lake level data and discharge data as well, which makes a big difference. You talk to a lot of guides out there, and it's like, you watch, here in about 30 minutes, we'll start catching them. It's like, oh, how do you know that? It's like, well, that's when they start releasing water at the dams.
Oh, yeah.
But,
absolutely.
Or when they stop doing it,
But yeah, it's definitely, if I could build every feature I could imagine in, like right now, like we have about 1,000 features, but
you'd have to charge for the app at that point.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You'd have to charge for the app then.
Yeah. Speaking of charging, and how I'm going to try and continue to keep this platform alive is, I've been lucky enough. I've secured $90,000 in non-dilutive grant funding to help, build the product, as well as give me some seed funds to, cover my operating costs. And I was actually in a program through the University of Arkansas called GORP. It was the Greenhouse Outdoor Recreation Program. And that's where they take seed stage companies in the outdoor rec sector and basically put them to school. I had to go to class one night a week for 3 months, and they go over everything from your legal formation to your marketing to your pricing to copyrights, trademarks, and how to brand. And it was a really cool program. They gave you a team of mentors, and they also gave me, I was actually one of the companies selected for a $15,000 sponsorship through the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission. And kind of helped set the stage for, some of the things that I've got coming up now, which is I'm actually a nationwide finalist in a grant competition. It's called the Richard King Mellon Social Impact Award pitch competition. And so the Richard King Mellon Foundation, the Mellon family, these big industrialists in the Northeast for 200 some odd years. And so like the Carnegie Mellon Foundation, same people. But anyways, I found out about this opportunity last fall, and I put in an application. And at first, I found out I made the top 60, and then I made the top 30, then I made the top 20. And I have a meeting with the program director tomorrow morning, and I could almost bet that he's going to tell me that I'm in the top 10, or else he probably wouldn't be setting up a meeting with me. And so
Yeah, that's a
tomorrow
good
morning,
sign.
so in June, their board's going to decide which companies out of the 10 are going to get investment, and 3 out of the 10 companies are each going to receive $500,000. And so
Wow.
that could be a real big game changer for me. I've been bootstrapping this business for so long. Between that grant funding that I got, I sold my house. I moved back home with my parents. Like, I paid for developers out of my own savings. And, I really tried to put, my all into it. That way, when I'm 60, 70 years old, I can look back and say, you did everything you possibly could, to make this work, and you're not going to regret it. So, but with this potential grant award, traditionally this foundation is invested in philanthropic, nonprofit type companies.
Yeah.
But with this social impact award, it's for for-profit companies, and they found a way to do this as long as that for-profit company is trying to make a positive societal impact in one of 4 categories, whether it's economic development, economic mobility, health and well-being, or conservation. And that's where Co-Angler fit the bill, was with the conservation piece, because of our pledge to give back to different conservation programs. And so that's something that could drastically help, me from a marketing perspective, get the word out. Because honestly, the biggest challenge that I've faced so far is just simply letting people know that this exists and that they can use it. There's almost 60 million people in the United States that fish.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I know, I've done all that research.
And I have not even skimmed the surface of letting them know. I got a shout out from Bill Dance last year.
Oh, wow.
This was a really cool story, but I learned a very valuable lesson about growth and growing too fast. And so I was at the Bassmaster Classic in Tulsa last year, and I was walking around the expo, and I had actually met, I told you about that program I was in Arkansas, but I was at the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame the fall before here in Springfield, and Bill was there, and my business mentor, who was a commissioner for Arkansas Game and Fish, was friends with Bill, and he sat me down and introduced me to him. This was about a month before the website went live. But I got to sit there with him for 5 minutes and show him my rack card flyer and tell him about what it was that I was building and why I'm building it. And he was really nice to me. He said, I like that. Keep me in the loop and let me know how it goes. I was like, all right, I will. I didn't know how I was going to let him know. It's not like I had his number or anything, but then I was at the Bassmaster Classic Expo the next spring, and there he was at the Garmin booth signing autographs. And I was like, well, here's my chance to jog his memory. And so I pulled out my phone, and I had the app open, and I walked right up to him, and I got my photo, and I said, hey, Bill, I don't know if you remember me or not, but I met you here last year, or I met you last fall at the Hall of Fame, and talking about my Co-Angler app. And I just want to tell you it's live, and we've got trips posted from Texas, Florida to New York, and I was scrolling through it and telling them about it's a new way for people to connect to go fishing. And he was kind of sitting there nodding and looking at it, and then he just stopped and looked at me and stopped me dead in my tracks. He's like, so what's your goal? What are you trying to do? And I was like, well, I'm trying to make fishing more affordable, more accessible, and more fun.
Yep.
And he took a second, and he kind of sat there, and he looked over, and he waved over this blonde-headed lady. And I went to the back of the Garmin booth and talked to her, and that was his niece, the chief operating officer of Bill Dance Outdoors. And she said, Uncle Billy told me to help you, so I'm going to help you. And she wanted to know about what my company was doing. And about a month later, they did a social media post for me. Didn't charge me anything, just out of the kindness of their heart. And picture of Bill holding up a big fish saying, hey, you ever go out there fishing alone and you can't catch that 15-pounder and get a good photo by yourself? You need a Co-Angler. That's where you download the Co-Angler app. But he posted on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and TikTok. And I was signing up a new user every 6 minutes for hours after that post. And I went, at that time, I had just started. I had about 300 users. I went to like 700 users almost overnight. And but what I learned is where I'd been, most of my users right here in the Midwest and southern Missouri, northern Arkansas, Oklahoma, Illinois. All of a sudden now I've got people in California, New York, Florida, Texas. I mean, coast to coast. and they're posting trips, and I don't have enough density on the app for these people to actually connect and go fishing. And so
Right.
a lot of people that created accounts, just kind of, well, there's no trips in my area, so I guess this is pretty well useless for me, so it was one of those examples of, it was a great opportunity to be, endorsed by Bill Dance, but also, it brought its own set of challenges too. And, but I can't thank them enough for taking the time to help a little guy like me in this endeavor. And, I'm still working with them too. Their
Nice.
Chief Operating Officer, Leslie, she's just been a fantastic resource for me. And they're going to be doing another for me in the near future. I'm looking forward to helping see some additional growth. But yeah, I will be forever indebted to Bill Dance. He's probably my favorite all-time angler. I grew up watching the show. His bloopers and everything. And he's just so kind. Like the way he treats people is just a salt of the earth type soul. And I'm very glad to say that I've been able to get help from Bill Dance. So.
Man, that's awesome. That just brand awareness. I mean, that brings you so much brand awareness. I mean, you're spot on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, then there was the time I met Johnny Morris, and that's a whole nother story. If we got time, I'll tell you that one too. That one went a little different.
I'm more of a Roland Martin fan.
Oh yeah,
I like him. I like him all.
Oh, son.
I did an open on Harris Chain years ago, and it was early in the morning, and we were on Harris Chain where we were. There weren't very many docks, so you just kind of beached it. So we beached it. The boater got out. He says, "I'm going to go to the bathroom and get some coffee and all that." I'm just sitting there, kind of nodding off a little. Boat pulls up alongside of me. All I hear from him is, "Go to sleep all day?" And I look over. It was Roland Martin.
Oh, wow.
We just sat there and talked for like 5 minutes. To me, he is and always will be a nice guy.
Oh, absolutely.
He didn't know me for nothing. He just sat there talking. Woke me up. But he was. I've met a lot of nice people in this sport.
Yeah.
There are a lot of nice people. Unless you get down here with Jeremy. Jeremy's not so good. He's been writing all day.
That's Mr. Mayhem. And
he finally woke up.
And this is the funniest thing I ever seen. I don't like fishing. Okay, Jeremy, you only go every day. Come on, man.
Yeah, he lives on the water.
Yeah, pretty much. Living a dream. So what was your Johnny Morris experience?
Yeah. Well, this is a good story. You can't make this stuff up. So, I'm from Springfield. Like I grew up just north of Springfield, and so that's where Bass Pro Shops is headquartered, and the very first store. And he started that Bass Pro Shops in the back of his dad's liquor store, and he was in that liquor store for 13 years before he actually got his first storefront. So that right there is a lesson to a lot of people that, you see this billionaire, and all this massive success he had. It took him over a decade just to get out of the back of his dad's liquor store. And if that doesn't tell you about, hard work and persistence. But, so I've benefited tremendously here living in the Ozarks from all the things that Johnny's done for the community, whether it's building museums and aquariums and, just these amazing attractions, that really is just circled, focused, wholeheartedly around the outdoors and conservation. So, but every year in Springfield, they have the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame induction ceremony at the White River Convention Center. And so I attended that first in September of 23. It was about a month before the website app went live. And I attended with a good friend of mine who was at the time the creative director for Major League Fishing. And so I actually got to get in there and sit at the Major League Fishing. I mean, Boyd Duckett's across the day, Dave Washburn. I mean, all these, Major League Fishing, Kathy Fennell, all at the same table that I'm sitting at. I'm like, oh, I don't belong here. And, but, I dressed up, it's a very formal event. So I was in my suit and I had all these rack card flyers and I was walking around and trying to, network and socialize and tell people about this new app that I had coming because I was in the who's who of the fishing world. Like everybody was there. And it was the first time I was ever in the same room as Johnny Morris. And I remember sitting there next to my buddy, and he actually worked for Bass Pro before Major League Fishing for 12 years as a graphic designer. And so he had been around Johnny before, but I asked him, I was like, do you think I should go tell Johnny Morris about Co-Angler? And he goes, man, he's getting pretty old and he doesn't get out very often. You may never have another chance. And that was all I needed to hear. And at that time, Johnny was out in the hallway talking to somebody. So I walked out in the hallway, pulled my phone out, pretended like I was talking on the phone, and started pacing up and down the hallway, just waiting for Johnny to get free so I could, talk to him without interrupting him. Sure enough, he gets free and he starts walking my direction down the hallway by himself. And so I put my phone down. I walk right up to him. I was shaking like a leaf. And I walk up to him, talking 1,000 miles an hour. And I said, hey, Johnny, I just want to introduce myself to you. My name's John Bledsoe. And I've got this new app that I just getting ready to launch called Co-Angler. It's designed to connect people to go fish together. And I handed him this rack card and he goes, that's great. I'll pass it down, but I'm sorry. I got to take a piss. And he put it in his jacket pocket and he went to the bathroom. And that was it. And that was it. And so I didn't follow him in the bathroom. I thought that'd be inappropriate. So I just left it at that. And so fast forward a year later, of course, I go to the event again at the Hall of Fame. And so I'm there, and I'd been there for about 45 minutes. And I'm, walking around, socializing, talking to people. And I come back into the auditorium where the awards were and walk through these double doors and look to my left, and there's Johnny Morris standing at this table on the wall with his drink in his hand, and he kind of starts walking my direction, and he's by himself. I was like, all right, here we go again. So I just walked right up to him, and I go, hey, Johnny, I got a favor to ask of you. And he goes, sure, bud, how can I help you? I said, well, I've got this Bass Pro hat that I got from your 50th anniversary fishing fair. I've got all these Hall of Famers that have signed this hat. I've got Roland Martin, Bill Dance, Jimmy Houston, KVD. And I said, there's a spot right next to the Bass Pro Shops logo. Would you be kind enough to autograph that for me? And he just lit up. I was like, buddy, I'd be honored. You just made my day. Thank you so much. He's like, where's it at? I'll sign it right now. And I was like, well, it's out in my pickup. I'll have to go get it here in a minute. And I pulled out my business card, and I told him, I said, Johnny, I don't know if you remember me or not, but I met you here last year. And he looked down and he saw my logo, my Co-Angler logo on my business card. And he goes, oh my gosh, buddy, I was putting on my Hall of Fame jacket a couple hours ago, and I went to empty out my pockets, and I pulled your flyer out, and I was like, son of a gun, I never followed up for that kid. And he ended up taking me over and introduced me to his right-hand man, who is his head of merchandising for the Marine Division, and said, Alan McMillan was his name. He said, Alan, this is John from Co-Angler. You need to follow up with him on his business. He met me here last year, and I totally dropped the ball, and his flyer sat in my Hall of Fame jacket for a whole year. So make sure you follow up with John. And then Alan just, when Johnny tells you to jump, how high. So it was cool, and Alan just jumped right in and got my contact info. And it wasn't a month later, I was invited to come pitch at headquarters, and I got invited to go into base camp. And I got to present to a couple of the executives, and they didn't just cut me a check right there on day one, but I still have some contacts there. And honestly, they let me down kind of easy. They said I was probably too early for an official partnership, but they wanted to stay up to date on my progress. But it was just
they got your name out there.
Yeah,
got your name out there. Hey,
if you don't take that leap of faith, the worst thing any of them could have said is no. But so there was a real valuable lesson for me, going and having the courage to do that. Just because, I don't know, it was just a really neat experience, and I can't say a bad thing about Johnny Morris because he treated me with such respect, and he just seemed like the most humble guy. And maybe one day I'll get some legs under this Co-Angler app, and they'll be coming to me, and it will be
exactly.
But,
hey, you never know, man. Hey, you made a connection though. That's the key thing, man. You made a connection.
Mm-hmm.
So,
that's like if you look at Cabela's. I mean, they started on a kitchen table. When you look at their history,
mm-hmm.
Even Amazon. Look at that. Amazon started in a small place.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like growing up. If you don't take that first step, you're never going to know where you can go.
Yeah. Yeah, and in almost every success story you hear, there's always some origination story where they go back to their humble beginnings, and that story is really what shapes, a lot of that appreciation for, where they end up, finding themselves. And that's what I'm trying. I'm just trying to do things with Co-Angler the right way. You can't cut corners, especially doing what I'm trying to do. And I think, if Bass Pro would have just cut me a big check and said, all right, now we got 90% of your company, like that wouldn't have been the right way to build this thing anyway. So, I think, doing it, taking my time and doing it the right way, because at the end of the day, what I'm trying to do is help people, and people can recognize if you're trying to pull a fast one on them, real quick. So I think, taking your time and, just trying to make sure you're doing things the right way to help people, that's ultimately what I'm trying to do. And it takes all of us, and that's one thing, I'm a solopreneur. I don't have any co-founders, but I would not be where I'm at today. The list is very, very long for the support and the network of people that I've had, that have helped me get to this point, because, whether it's friends and family or developers and, project managers or business entrepreneurs and mentors and other founders of companies and people that I've fished with and people in the fishing world, there's just a long, long list of people that I have to give thanks to that, I wouldn't be here today without them. So.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We all start, like it says, I started in a small bedroom originally.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I took Grego lures at one point when we lived in our other house.
Mm-hmm.
I was running a fishing lure company out of my living room.
Yeah.
The desk in one corner, we had the big TV. We had all and I had one wall was just me.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But yeah, we all start, and I think the companies that start like that, that start modest, are the ones that stay around in this business the longest.
Yeah.
Because look at all these people that is in this industry, plastic companies, just the plastic companies. They come out like a ball of fire, introducing 20, 50 different types of plastics, and 2 years later they're gone.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think when you start small, like you, like me, I still foot the bills for this business every month out of my pocket.
Yep.
It's not cheap running a network and everything. But now I'm at that point where I can say, and I got John from here.
Yep.
We're working on a sponsor package for commercials.
Mm-hmm.
So it may take another 2 years before we turn a profit.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, when you're 70, you want something. Unfortunately, I'm going to hit 70 before you. I only got 5 years to go. So, but yeah, we learn to do without.
Yeah.
Because we know the end result's going to be worth it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like Roy just said, paid dues means a lot. Right. Absolutely. You two guys have put the work in. There ain't no doubt.
And Roy is a perfect example. You want to get somewhere, get a hold of Roy, because he built his online kayak magazine, and you go check that magazine out. It is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is
wonderful. And he's built up his subscription base, everything. And that's how you do it. Mm-hmm. One person at a time. Mm-hmm. And you gave me a lot of ideas. I got a couple of shows coming up in Richmond. Mm-hmm. I live right just about an hour north of Richmond.
Yeah.
We have a hunting channel. Mm-hmm. And we have a hunting show coming up in August at Richmond. Mm-hmm. I might be walking around there handing my business card out to everybody.
Yeah. There you go.
You got to put yourself out there and start I've met so many people. Here's an example right here. There was another Hall of Fame event in Springfield. It's called the Legends of the Outdoors. And Gary Mason out of Tennessee. He's the guy that put that together. But I got to go see that, and they had Will Primos and Bill Jordan got inducted last year. And but I was we were just standing there, and there was this gentleman in a nice suit standing next to me, and we were kind of just standing there, not even paying attention to each other. And we looked over, and next thing you know, we just shook hands and introduced each other and exchanged business cards. And his name was Ron Jolly, and he used to be a producer for the Primos hunting TV shows for all those years. And
Wow.
And he's turned out to just be just such a helpful friend, just from meeting him at that one event last year. And I'll call him from time to time, and he helped me get me on a radio show down in Mobile, Alabama last week, and introduced me to some other podcasters. And so you never know who you're going to meet, the people, and that's where all of our success, there's one saying that I really tie or hold on to, and it's, failure is a very lonely endeavor, but success is always shared. You have to, success is never an individual endeavor. So
yep,
that's a good question. How can co-angler be used for kayak anglers? Yeah. So, depending on the water body that you're trying to fish, I actually told this story earlier in the podcast, but the very first co-angler trip that I wasn't involved in when we launched the app was two gentlemen that planned a kayak fishing trip together, and they helped each other shuttle the boats on this 7-mile stretch of river. So there was a gentleman that posted a trip. He had 2 kayaks, said, if you want to join me, I've got a boat for you. I just need some help shuttling. And so they actually planned and executed this trip and went and caught largemouth and smallmouth bass out of their kayaks. And when I came up with this idea, it was, I was in my boat with my extra seat. Yeah, you need a boat, but we've had people use this for kayak trips. We've had people use it for wading trips, for fly fishing, and just fishing from the bank. So it's a great way to kind of leverage. There's people out in your community that you can connect with for helping shuttle those boats and get on the water. And if you're fishing a lake and shuttling's not necessarily a big deal, maybe you just connect with somebody else with a kayak and you both get out there and kind of fishing together in the same cove, or whatever else you want to do. So
absolutely,
yeah.
But yeah, co-anglers. I was just going to say, I'm reading these questions now from Roy. Yeah, it's co-anglers a way for people to offer and request fishing trips to connect with each other. They can share costs, knowledge, equipment, each other's company. Some people like making jokes. It's a dating service for fishermen, but it's not. It's just a way, something that didn't exist that I went and decided to go build. And we've got over 1,300 people now in 45 states, and we're growing. And thankful for the support from Rob and Al to help me get the word out here on the podcast. But yeah,
great app there, Roy. There's your map and there's your trips right there.
Yeah,
and John, like we were talking about earlier,
mm-hmm.
If you're new to a lake, you can find somebody fishing it and go fish it. If you want to go to a lake with a bass boat, you can find someone that's familiar to jump on the boat. The same thing with the kayak.
Yeah.
If I've never fished a lake, I can say, hey, I'm coming in with my kayak. Maybe you don't want to go out by yourself. Maybe you just want to have a partner out there with you. So, like you said, it can get people together so we're not alone.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a river and it'd be safer with 2 or 3 people. Like you said, just float down the river together, help each other out.
Yeah.
But it can help you do all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is a great app, and it's, like you said, it doesn't cost anything.
Mm-hmm.
And the outcome could be perfect for you.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we've had some people make great friendships on there. So yeah, I'm reading this question too. Can you get a trip last minute if a trip was canceled from another provider? So in this case, say somebody's offering a trip, and for whatever reason, they've got that trip confirmed with a co-angler, and then the person providing that trip cancels that trip. That trip's just going to disappear off the app. So now, if you have some, you can create your own offered trip, and then hopefully that person, could join. But yeah, and there's still lots of things that we need to continue to build in to make sure it's a little bit more seamless. And also catering to those last minute trips is something that I've learned. A lot of times people don't plan a week 2 weeks in advance on their fishing trips. It tends to be a little bit more of an impromptu. Half the time, half of all fishing trips are planned pretty much the same day, is what I've learned. So,
Oh yeah.
So
day before if you're lucky.
Yep.
Yep, definitely. It
Hey,
Roy.
Jeremy.
Yeah, I know.
Jeremy is Jeremy, man.
He is Mr. Mayhem for a reason. But
yeah.
anyway, hey, Roy Widgeon says I'd love to write an article on this. May have to get up with our boy Roy. Yeah, Roy's huge in the kayak community. Great guy. We've had him on the show before. So
great, Roy. I'd love to. I'd love to. You can send me an email.
Great guy to talk to.
Yeah,
very knowledgeable.
Yeah, yep. You can send me an email to John John at coangler.com, and I'd be happy to talk with you. And that's the stage I'm at right now. Is like I'm trying to do a lot more public, PR and get the word out. It's I don't have a marketing budget like a lot of these big companies out there, so it's just up to me to go and talk till I'm blue in the face. But I really anybody that is willing to take the time to help share what it is that this platform brings to anglers and the value, I think it's I'm all for it. So that's my number one goal right now, is to help make people's lives just a little bit easier that want to go fishing. So
absolutely, and all you small business guys support each other. I think that's great. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a great match there. So, anyway, hey, we're about an hour 20 minutes in. I know Al's got some stuff to do. I got some stuff to do. But hey, John, I enjoyed it. I'll send you the link. We'll have this on YouTube, and you can cut and section it if you want little sections to do little clips. Feel free to. But I'll send it to you once it gets downloaded and everything. And say cut, look, little sections, whatever you need, wherever you want to do. It's fine with us.
Awesome.
It'll be on the network.
Yep. It'll be on the Al's network as well.
The network over the weekend.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I can't thank you guys enough, Rob and Al. I think, it's just such a pleasure to get to spend time with you and sit and talk and share, back and forth. And, let's check in again in 6 months to a year and, and see where we're at then. And I'm sure we'll have a lot more things to talk about and some good fishing stories. But I just can't thank you enough for the help and letting me come on your podcast. I really appreciate it. You guys are great.
Hey, man, we've had a ball, and hey, we'll definitely go check in with you. I know you're going to have a lot more updates and apps and ads. So, we'll definitely get an update and check in with you in the near future. And, hey, appreciate you coming on. And, hey, best of luck. I know I'll be tuning in and getting some trips lined up when I can. So, appreciate you, and good luck to you.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, for me, it's nice talking to somebody in the same position I'm in.
Right.
Building a company and trying to do what we're doing.
Yeah.
But we'll talk soon. If you put together a little 30-second commercial, shoot it over to me. We'll add it to some of the shows. We'll just throw it on there, help boost you up a little.
Hey, that'd be awesome. That's very, very kind of you. And I'll for sure be following up.
Yeah.
All right.
We can do that.
All right.
All right,
good deal.
Gentlemen.
All right. Well, everybody, thanks for tuning in, and give us a like and share it around. And best of luck, John and Co-Anglers app. Everybody get on and get on the website and download the app. So, as again, appreciate John, appreciate Alvin, and y'all have a good night, and see you tomorrow night. Peace out.
All right.
See you guys. All right.